Windows operating system problems. The Windows operating system is a massive, complex amount of program code. The Windows operating system has nearly 600 million lines of code. Fortunately for us, we can take a systematic approach to solving software related issues. Windows based issues can be grouped in several categories based on their cause, such as boot problems, missing files, system files, or configuration files, and virtual memory. Now, our goal in this lesson is to troubleshoot common OS problems. So let's go ahead and get started. Blue screen of death. Blue screen of death is a way of describing a blue screen error condition that occurs when Windows fails to boot properly or quits unexpectedly. If this happens during a boot, it is at the stage that the device drivers for the various pieces of hardware are installed or loaded. Now, if your Windows GUI fails to start properly, more than likely the problem is related to a misconfigured driver or misconfigured hardware. You can try a few things if you believe that a driver is causing the problem. You could try booting into safe mode. In safe mode, Windows loads only basic drivers such as the standard VGA driver and the keyboard and mouse. So you can uninstall the faulty driver. Also, you can boot into Windows recovery environment and use the system restore option, which will revert the system back to the state where the last system report was made. One thing also about the blue screen error is that Windows 10 shows the error code or the problem area and a URL to investigate the issue online further. Sluggish performance. The performance of your system will be inevitably slow down over time. This could be due to a number of reasons: additional programs, bad Windows update patches, malware. Sluggish or slow performance is one of the hardest problems to solve on a Windows operating system because there's so many symptoms related to one another. Now, the first step into solving this problem is identifying the component that is impacted by the performance issue. Now, we're going to go through a list of things that those could be. Say, for instance, like the CPU. Poor CPU performance would manifest in applications opening slowly or executing. The CPU fan may be running at a higher than normal as well. RAM. When a system is out of RAM, you'll see high disk activity. As the physical RAM is used up, the system will rely on virtual memory on the hard disk. The disk itself could be a problem. A symptom of poor hard disk drive performance is the thrashing or the noise that you hear when the hard drive is moving really, really fast and reading and writing. Excessive amount of movement of that drive arm to locate information on the drive. Disk problems can be caused by excessive fragmentation, high RAM usage, or just a high volume of drive usage by applications, such as like a video capture. Also can be impacted as the network. Slow loading web pages or network applications that load slowly and may time out. You may also experience problems with the graphics. The graphics card may be slow running video games or playback videos. Now, Windows has built in tools. You can look at the resource monitor, and that can help you diagnose this problem a little bit further and see actually what the problem could be. Frequent shutdowns. There are many reasons why your computer may randomly turn off or shut down without warning. The problem is always related to faulty hardware or faulty driver, but sometimes it can be as simple as tweaking your advanced power settings. First, check the event viewer. Look through the logs to see the source of the off kernel boot or kernel general error. The entries will help you identify if the operating system was shut down properly or is it just suddenly lost power. Anytime the operating system is shut down, the kernel will log an entry. And when it's powered back up, it will also log an entry to that event as well. Now, if you identify it's a hardware issue, first step is updating the drivers. Check also to see if the system is overheating and make sure it's getting proper airflow. Now, if you determine that it's the operating system that's shutting itself down, check the power settings and make sure it's not going to sleep while it's plugged in. Service is not starting. A service's failure to start is directly related to either an application installed with conflicting resources or a misconfiguration of the service. The first step is again check the event viewer. That's going to give you a lot of information. The system log will display an event ID of like 7,000 from the source of the control manager, and the reason may vary. If it's a conflict, reinstall the software that installed the failing service. This may break the application, but may be the quickest route to fixing the problem. If it fails due to a misconfiguration, the most likely cause is the user account or the service is configured to start with. You can verify the user configured that starts that service by going to the service properties. Open the properties of the service by right clicking on the start menu, selecting computer management, then services, right clicking the service, selecting properties, and finally selecting on the logon tab. And you can see what user is configured to start that service. Applications crashing. Some causes hardware issue, compatibility issue, and other problems related to why apps crash. Make sure that the applications are updated in their patches and all the fixes are applied. Of course, use the Windows event log. This is going to give you the telltale sign of what's really going on. Also, you can use the Windows Reliability Monitor, and you can see the applications that crash and see when the updates were applied to them. And this kind of helps narrow down that problem. Low memory warnings. Random access memory, or RAM, is the computer's physical memory. The more RAM you physically have installed on a computer, the more items you can have running in the foreground of the operating system. Now, if you run out of physical memory or RAM, then processors are background or minimized and will be loaded into the page file. Now, the page file is space on the hard drive. This is called paging, and it is totally normal to have a certain amount of paging happening during normal activity. Now, the page file is actually the drive. There's space on the hard drive that the program gets temporarily placed on while it's reassessing the memory in the system. You can modify these default settings by going into clicking Start, Control Panel, then selecting it from the results as far as the virtual paging. If you click the Start icon and select Advanced System Settings from the right panel, in the Performance area, click Settings. Next, click the Advanced tab, and then after that, your virtual memory area, and you can change that as well. And again, this is a way just to fix the virtual page RAM. But if the system is low on memory, it may be time to add more physical memory. USB controller resource warnings. The USB controller is a component that supplies both power and a data path for devices connected to it. Now, our systems have different types of controllers, USB controllers, the USB 2.0 and 3.0. The 2.0 can handle 5 concurrent loads of 100 milliamps each, or 500 milliamps altogether, while the 3.0 can handle 6 concurrent loads of 150 milliamps each, or 900 milliamps for all. If a device connected draws more than its allotted power, it would malfunction and become unstable and disconnect frequently. The USB controller handles data paths and is responsible also for managing the number of endpoints for the purpose of accepting data. Now, the endpoints are allocated so many pathways. So if you have a device that's pulling too much data or pulling outside of its allotted pathways, that can get an error as well. So this will be some of where your errors are coming from. No operating system found. This is a message that we would hate to see. So basically, your system is booting up and it cannot find or read the boot files for the operating system. You wouldn't want to check the BIOS or the UEFI. Make sure it detects the hard drive. But if it does not detect the hard drive, you do want to make sure that you check the cabling. Make sure the cabling is from the hard drive um, uh, is there. It's plugged in and it is connected. Also, you want to check that there's no media plugged into the system, like a USB or CD, ROM, or DVD. The system could be set to boot off of those. Therefore, it's not finding the boot files because it's trying to boot off of one of those media types. And if that is the case, you want to change the hard drive order and the boot order and to make sure it boots off where the boot files are, like on the C drive. Also, this could be a damaged hard drive or damaged or corrupted boot files. Other boot problems that are more serious than boot media is basically you may have to boot into the Windows recovery environment. So if the BIOS UEFI can be accessed, use the vendor's recovery console. Or you could have to boot from the installation media, the CD or the DV-ROM that came with your software. You can choose to repair the operating system by going to Troubleshoot, Advanced Options, and Startup Repair. Slow loading profile. A local profile is a group of settings for the user as well as their personal files. Local profiles can be slow to load because the items that set to start when the profile is loaded. You can use the task manager to selectively disable startup items. Um, by the process of elimination, after several logouts and logins, you can narrow down the performance of the problem caused by the slow loading profiles. When you're on a network, a Windows network with Active Directory, this could be a Roman profiles issue. The profiles are located on the server, and those profiles get big after a while and have to traverse over the network. Time drift is another issue that we may come across or see in our systems. The real time clock or the RTC maintains the correct time. Now, this can drift either faster or slower over time. This causes authentication problems. It causes certificates to be invalid. Also, problems with some websites because the system time is different from where the information that you're connecting your IP address is from. Windows uses the network time protocol, which is the time.windows.com. Make sure that your computer can reach that because it can automatically adjust the time on the clock for the system. So, common troubleshooting steps when we come across these symptoms. One would be reboot. This often take care of a multitude of issues. Allow the operating system to terminate hung processes and restart everything. Restart services. Sometimes you may not have to do a reboot, but just restart the services. Uninstall, reinstall, or update applications. A lot of times it's our updates on our applications. Um, it could be that an update was applied and overwrote critical files. Rollback updates may be a troubleshooting step. Sometimes we can isolate hardware problems due to the faulty device driver, and so we can roll back to the original version of that. Sometimes we're going to have to add resources, like we talked about before. You're going to have to add RAM or storage. Sometimes you may have to upgrade the CPU on the motherboard. You want to make sure that you do meet the requirements to do that. If it's not met, you may have to add additional RAM, storage, CPU, if possible, on that software that you're using. System file check. Scan and replace files that's corrupted. The built-in Windows tool, the sfc.exe or the system file check, can update or replace those critical missing files. Sometimes you're going to have to repair Windows. Now, this will be a little bit more intensive. This will reinstall all the files from a media source, but will leave all the applications and the user data. Sometimes you may have to restore the operating system to a previous point before issues. So you would do a restore. Now, you can do restore points, set them manually, or you can automatically create restore points. If this is an organization, sometimes they would re-image the system. They may have a standard image that they use, and they'll re-image the system, which is much quicker than reinstalling the operating system manually. Sometimes you may have to rebuild the Windows profile. This is related to profile related issues. You can reset the Windows profile, but make sure you have a backup of that first. Okay, in this lesson, we went over different common symptoms that you would see in your Windows system, and we also went over some common troubleshooting steps and how to diagnose and resolve those issues. Thank you for being a part of this lesson, and I will see you in the next lesson.